Okay, it's time for another rant because I got in a conversation with somebody today where we talked about calories. Calories of food. And so I was like, really? You still believe that? Well, yeah, it's a good way to measure. Blah, blah, blah. Calories of food is a waste of time because the underlying composition of the food that you're eating, the macronutrients, underlying minerals and vitamins of that food matter more than however many calories you want to equate to that food. Okay? So you could eat 1,000 calories of ground beef, 1,000 calories of potato chips, 1,000 calories of rice, 1,000 calories of bread, 1,000 calories of chicken, 1,000 calories of broccoli with butter and olive oil all over it. All of those 1,000 calories are going to affect you differently because they each have different macronutrient components, different vitamin and mineral profiles. So why are we even counting calories? It's really about the quality of the protein that you're eating, the quality of the fats that you're eating, and whether the carbs that happen to show up in your food are nutrient dense. Okay? You do not need carbohydrates to live. You don't. You don't have to eat a single carbohydrate type food at all in your entire life and you will be fine. Because if your body needs glucose, it can convert protein to that. It'll live off fats. Fat is basically a way to store energy. It's the most efficient way to do it. Your body can turn fat into glucose, and that's what it does. It does the same thing with protein. If it gets carbs, if it gets something that can be turned directly into glucose, which is essentially what carbs are, glucose, that's what it does, okay? And so what happens is your bloodstream can only handle 5 grams of glucose. That's about a teaspoon. That's it. Any more than that, your body freaks out, immediately starts storing it. Because if you have too much glucose in your blood will get thick and you'll die. So your body stores it. Thing is, if your body's constantly having to store the glucose, the glucose gets stored, doesn't get released as energy. You understand what I'm saying? You know, there's this insulin hormone and glucagon hormone, and we can go into the nitty-gritty, but I'm just trying to keep it simple. All right? So, if you look at foods as things that are based upon calories, you're completely misunderstanding how your body processes foods. All right? You know, sticking food in a metal container and burning it to a crisp and then measuring the temperature of the water is not how we process food. We get foods that contain macronutrients, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and different minerals and vitamins, and that is processed. That's food. You are better off looking at the grams of protein, the grams of fat, and just making sure you don't eat too many carbohydrates, and making sure the foods you eat that have carbohydrates are nutrient dense, like blueberries, broccoli, carrots. I wouldn't eat anything in the United States that is made from wheat, because the wheat here is not processed correctly. All right, there's a big to-do, especially with the French, because they love their bread, about how Americans, the United States, they don't do bread right, and there's a lot of truth to that because they don't treat the grains right. They don't soak the grains. They don't allow time for the fermentation, for the pre-digestion of the difficult proteins in the bread. They don't, because, you know, they don't want to wait that long. They got to make money, you know, so get it out there, get it out there. You know, that's really what it is. And so the breads that you see in the grocery store, you got, what, 2 aisles? You know, you can consider cereal bread. Consider that bread. Doritos, Frito-Lays, all that stuff, the same thing. It's bread. So think about how much of the grocery store is really just a bunch of badly processed grains. And that's what we eat. And since it's badly processed grains, the difficult proteins to digest don't get digested by us, and they just like cause inflammation in our gut, in addition to spiking our glucose because we're getting too many carbs that we can process at one time. And then the proteins that we do get, we don't really digest well, so we're not even getting that. And the fats that we get are rancid. They're polyunsaturated, which means they're probably oxidized. If you look that up, if you know what that means. That means it just becomes a different molecule that is practically toxic. And that gets into your bloodstream. And once that gets into your bloodstream, it doesn't leave. You don't urinate that out. Once it's in your bloodstream, it's not a defecation thing. Defecation is what doesn't get into your bloodstream. That's what's left over your digestive system. People don't understand this. It drives me nuts. So I get in the conversation with somebody who's talking about calories that are so relevant, and they're not. They are not relevant. What the fuck?